Coming up on 5 Minute News. Israel seals off Gaza as Hamas vows to execute hostages. RFK Jr. announces independent run for president. And California tells big business to reveal carbon emissions in groundbreaking new law. It's Tuesday, October 10. I'm Anthony Davis. Israel increased airstrikes on the Gaza Strip and sealed it off from food, fuel, and other supplies on Monday in retaliation for a bloody incursion by the Hamas militants as the war's death toll rose to nearly 1,600 on both sides. Hamas also escalated, pledging to kill captured Israelis if attacks targeted civilians without warning. In the war's third day, rescue workers found 100 bodies in the tiny farming community of Be'eri, around 10% of its population, after a long hostage standoff with gunmen. In Gaza, tens of thousands fled their homes as relentless airstrikes leveled buildings. The Israeli military said it had largely gained control in the south after the attack caught its vaunted military and intelligence apparatus completely off guard and led to fierce battles in its streets for the first time in decades. Hamas and other militants in Gaza say they are holding more than 130 soldiers and civilians snatched from inside Israel. Israeli tanks and drones were deployed to guard breaches in the Gaza border fence to prevent new incursions. Thousands of Israelis were evacuated from more than a dozen towns near Gaza, and the military summoned 300,000 reservists, a massive mobilization in a short time. The moves, along with Israel's formal declaration of war on Sunday, pointed to Israel increasingly shifting to the offensive against Hamas, threatening greater destruction in the densely populated, impoverished Gaza Strip, where half of the 2 million people are children. We have only started striking Hamas, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a nationally televised address. What we will do to our enemies in the coming days will reverberate with them for generations. Republicans attacked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. yesterday as the conspiracy theorist and anti-vaccine activist launched an independent bid for the White House, reflecting growing concerns on the right that the former Democrat now threatens to take votes from former President Donald Trump in 2024. The Republican National Committee and Trump's campaign both took aim at Kennedy's liberal background, while National Democrats stayed silent, as Kennedy insisted in a speech in Philadelphia that he was leaving both political parties behind. Kennedy, a member of one of the most famous families in Democratic politics, was running a long-shot primary bid and holds better favorability ratings among Republicans than Democrats. Even Trump just 2 weeks ago said of Kennedy, "I like him a lot. I've known him for a long time." Allies of both Biden and Trump have at times questioned whether Kennedy would be a spoiler against their candidate. "The truth is, they're both right," Kennedy said on stage on Monday to roaring applause. "My intention is to spoil it for both of them." Monday's announcement comes less than a week after the progressive activist Cornel West abandoned his Green Party bid in favor of an independent White House run. Meanwhile, the centrist group No Labels is actively securing ballot access for a yet-to-be-named candidate. Joe Biden's allies so far have dismissed Kennedy's primary campaign as unserious. 4 of Kennedy's 8 surviving siblings put out a joint statement denouncing his candidacy and saying his announcement saddened them. A groundbreaking California law will force large companies doing business in the state, including major global corporations, to disclose their planet-heating carbon emissions. The measure, signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom on Saturday, will be the nation's first of its kind, serving as a blueprint for national climate accountability. It comes as federal regulators have dragged their feet on crafting similar rules, which could be finalized this month. SB 253 will require California regulators to create rules by 2025 for public and private companies whose annual revenues exceed $1 billion. That affects around 5,300 corporations, including Chevron, Wells Fargo, Amazon, and Apple. By 2026, those companies will have to publicly disclose how much carbon is produced by their operations and electricity use. Critically, by 2027, they will also be required to report emissions generated by their supply chains and customers, known as Scope 3 emissions, which are highly controversial among business interests, including the fossil fuel industry. Both bills will make new data public beyond California's borders, which supporters say could be game-changing. The measures come as the Security and Exchange Commission finalizes a long-awaited similar federal mandate. Last year, the agency proposed regulations that would likewise require publicly traded companies to notify investors of their emissions, including Scope 3 emissions and climate-related risks. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.